Hello, it's David again. This is part two. This is the actual pinning of the insect where the previous one was set up thing. First thing, before you start pinning, what you want to do on your insect is identify what order the insect is in, because the pinpoint position depends upon the order. You can see that not all are in the abdomen. Some of them are in the thorax and some are in the abdomen, the third body part. So like the grasshopper is the second body part, the beetle, Coleoptera, is the third body part. So you need to identify at least what order your insect is to help with where to put the pinpoint. Again, there's a lot more on the K-State webpage for where all that stuff is. So first identifying that. Then once you have it identified, then what you want to do is get ready to start putting your pin point or pin insect pin through the insect. Now, if the kid's very young and or has some mental or physical disabilities, we allow the parents to help on this. So once the kid gets proficient or older, then we expect the kid to do it themselves. This is a beetle here, so like on the diagram here, what we want to do is we want to put the pin through the third body part, but not right in the middle, just off to the right and a little bit down from where it starts. And what you're going to do is take your pin, usually again number 3s, especially if you have a big beetle, number 3 will work. Some of the water divers, you'll have to really, as you're putting the pin through, kind of spin it to kind of drill action. That's where you definitely need 3, and a lot of times parents will have to help. So again, if you have magnifying glasses you can wear, they can help with pinning, especially on the smaller insects. But the bigger ones, you can kind of see by sight, and you're putting the pin through, and you're trying to get the pin through so it's vertical, up and down straight, and while you look on the front, it's the same way. As you can see right now, I'm already starting to get a little really bad on that, so I've got to be a little careful as I put it the rest of the way through. And you're going to push the insect through, or the pin through the insect. Leave about what you think is a good 1/4 inch of the top, and then what you're going to try doing is seeing if the insect is horizontal versus this way or this way from the side. That one doesn't look too bad. Then what you're going to do is again look at it from the front, and the same thing you want to do there. You want to see if it's this way, or pretty horizontal. This one looks pretty good. If it was offset, what you want to do is pull the pin not all the way out. You want to pull it back into the body part of the main body of the insect, so then you can reposition whichever way you need to go. Since this one's pretty good, we'll have some diagrams during the class as to more exaggerated examples of what you're not looking for. So next thing we want to do is really get a 1/4 inch of the pin above the insect. If you don't have a pinning block, you'll just have to kind of estimate and try. If you have some of what you pinned before to kind of look at, you can. If you do have a pinning block, that's where this comes in very nice. And again, top of the insect is the very lowest 1/4 inch. I always push my insect all the way almost to the end of the pin, and then what I do is turn it upside down, and then you push the pin all the way to the bottom of the board, and now you've got a 1/4 inch above the insect. So now we're ready to start spreading the insect legs. A lot of times this is where I'd like to, before I put it on the styrofoam, if I have a tweezers, I like to see if I can pull the legs out. A lot of times they won't always stay out for you. If they do, great. If not, don't. Again, this is where it's nice to do, because some of the beetles definitely have a little clasp on the end of their legs, so it likes to grab onto things. It's also a good time to make sure you don't have them grabbing onto the pin too much. Then what you're going to do is pull your styrofoam, and you're going to put your insect on the styrofoam, and you want to get it to where it kind of looks natural standing. And so you're trying to push the insect down to where then when you pull the legs out, it'll be in kind of a natural standing position. Again, as you're catching the insects, pay attention to how they're positioned, because that's how you're going to try to make them look when you pin the insect, other than moths and butterfly, because you're going to spread the wings there. Again, if the kid has very young or physical issues, if the parent wants to do one side of the insect and then let the child do the other side, we're good with that. Figure out which is your dominant side of your kid. If the kid's right-handed, you pin the left side of the insect. If your kid's left-handed, you pin the right side of the insect. This is now when you pull out, again, like I say, I like my quilting pins, and then start working on pulling the legs out. Now, as this one's coming out with the legs, again, the styrofoam sometimes will catch on you, which this one is. If you had that pink styrofoam, maybe it won't catch as much. It's amazing how you think these insects are pretty fragile, and they're pretty sturdy type of thing. And so just kind of work your pin there. If you need to temporarily put one there so the leg doesn't pull back in, do that. Then start working on another leg to kind of pull it out. Again, this is where tweezers can come in very handy. You can then pull the leg out with the tweezers, and again, if you need to kind of keep it from falling back in, use a pin. This one's not rotating as much, but sometimes if you're starting to pull a leg out that will rotate the whole body, what you'll want to do is then come back behind here, not where you can catch legs, and put pins at the back. So as you're pulling the legs out now, it won't rotate on you. I always like to sit there and pull all 6 legs out. Just kind of temporarily get pins there to kind of hold them in position. And again, if you have to do it for your child, maybe at this point then start positioning your legs to try making them look as natural as can be. Again, a lot of the front legs come to the very front of the insect. Again, this is where the little claspers sometimes will help you. Sometimes they're a hindrance as well. Sometimes you might have to put a pin underneath to hold the leg up a little bit. And then once you get it up, then you can put the pin in there. And then what you want your child to do, if you've done one side, is to match what you've done on your side. And sometimes you have to just temporarily use a pin there, so then you can then start pulling out a little bit more. Let's see here. I think that one looks pretty good. That looks good here. Let me work a little bit on this top right leg. Again, looks like I might have to put one behind here to kind of hold it up. And as you see, I already ran out of pins, so oops, got one more here on the side. And so that's what I'm trying to do. Again, make it look as natural as I can with the legs spread out. If it has antenna, this one doesn't have antenna, then you might have to put pins on the antenna. If they're longhorns, those usually have long antenna, and you want to kind of stripe them along the side of the body type of stuff there. If the abdomen is one that like a grasshopper, which will tend to fall down, what you'll want to do is create what they call a cradle. And that's where you can maybe even take the 2 pins that you use to kind of keep it from rotating. You can sit there and use those. And what you're going to try doing is to diagonal such that when you put the pin in, it holds the abdomen up on the insect. Beetles are usually not too bad with the abdomen falling. Butterflies, grasshoppers, a lot of those, the abdomens like to fall. And so that's where putting a cradle, again, you got to be careful not to catch legs when you're doing that, to hold it in position. Praying mantis, that's another good place where you need a cradle. You try and get those legs that they kind of have holding up like this in that situation there. Then the next thing I like to do is take the piece of paper that when you caught the insect that had the date and the locality. You know, if you have the identification, great. If not, I always like to put that right next to the insect Again, pull out one of my pins. That way it always stays with the insect, so I know where and when I caught that insect. Now the last part of it is drying. Usually what you want to do is put this a safe place. If you have cats, you're going to have to definitely put it someplace where they don't get to. Typically the drying period is between 10 and 14 days. Some insects that have a little bit more moisture in them, some of the katydids, some of those things might take a little bit longer. Again, 10 to 14 days. And once they're dry, what you're going to do is very carefully start pulling the pins out, except for the insect pin. And you just start pulling them out a little bit at a time, pulling them out very careful. And then ideally have a temporary box, maybe not your collection box, that you then can put the insect in along with your date and locality label. So then later on when you're building your labels with the actual insect, the May beetle, you can build your labels at that point. That's the highlight of pinning beetles. Again, younger kids, I would strongly urge pinning first with the big beetles to get the habit down. If some of them don't cooperate, just pin them the best you can. You can always get a better specimen to repin at another time. If it's very rare, just go ahead and pin it as best you can, and hopefully it can catch another one sometime later. That's what I have for. Let me give you a little better shot here. I think in the class that we give, I give a little diagram on the pinning the wings of a grasshopper out. But you can see there's quite a few pins in here. So again, use sewing pins. As I say, I like quilting pins because they're bigger, a little hard, easier to get in. You're not messing as close to the insect. Again, thank you for watching.